Officer Tom Riley was a man etched with the lines of duty. 20 years on the force in the small town of Havenwood had seasoned him, painting his face with the quiet weariness of countless late nights and the grim set of someone who'd seen too much darkness. He was a good cop, known for his fairness and dedication, but even the best could make mistakes. It started with a string of robberies plaguing Havenwood's quiet streets. Small businesses were targeted. Miss Gable's flower shop, old Mr. Henderson's pharmacy, and even the local bakery. Each time, the MO was the same. A quick smash and grab, targeting cash and easily fenced items. The only description anyone could give was a man of average height, wearing a dark hoodie, his face obscured by shadow. The pressure was on. The town council was breathing down the chief's neck, and the chief, in turn, was breathing down Tom's. People were scared, and the newspapers were having a field day. Hey! Then came the tip, anonymous but specific. A man named Arthur Jenkins, living on the outskirts of town, fit the vague description and had a history of petty theft back in his youth. It was a flimsy lead, but Tom was running out of options. He drove out to Arthur Jenkins' small, weather-beaten house. The yard was overgrown. A tire swing hung listlessly from a branch, and the paint was peeling. It looked like a place where hope had long since given up. Tom knocked on the door, and it was opened by a woman, with tired eyes and a wary smile. She introduced herself as Sarah, Arthur's wife. Behind her peeked two children, a boy of about 8 and a girl of 6, both with bright, curious eyes. "Mr. Jenkins isn't here right now," Sarah said, her voice hesitant. "He's at his second job. He works nights at the mill." Tom's gut clenched. 2 jobs. This didn't sound like a hardened criminal, but he had a job to do. "Ma'am, I need to speak with him regarding the recent robberies in town," Tom said, keeping his voice calm and professional. "Can you tell me when he'll be home?" Sarah's face paled. "He's been working every night. Arthur wouldn't do anything like that." Despite her protests, Tom waited. When Arthur finally arrived, his face was streaked with grime. His shoulders slumped with exhaustion. He looked more defeated than dangerous. Tom told Arthur about the robberies and the anonymous tip. Arthur listened, his face growing increasingly bewildered. "Officer, I swear, I haven't stolen anything," Arthur said, his voice cracking with the strain. "I've been working double shifts just to keep food on the table." Ask anyone at the mill." Tom knew he should verify Arthur's alibi, but the pressure, the fatigue, and the vague description swirling in his head all combined to cloud his judgment. He saw the weariness in Arthur's eyes, the dilapidated house, the desperate need for money, and his mind filled in the blanks. He saw what he wanted to see. "I'm going to have to take you in for questioning, Mr. Jenkins," Tom said. The look on Arthur's face was one of utter disbelief. Sarah gasped, and the children started to cry, clinging to their father's legs. "Please, officer, you've got the wrong man," Sarah pleaded, tears streaming down her face. Tom felt a prick of guilt, but he pushed it aside. He was doing his job. The arrest was quick, efficient, and devastating. Arthur was taken to the station, booked, and held for questioning. He maintained his innocence, but Tom, convinced he had his man, pressed him hard. Meanwhile, back at the Jenkins house, 8-year-old Billy and 6-year-old Lily were distraught. They saw their father, their hero, being taken away by the police. They knew their father was a good man, a hard worker, who always put them first. Seeing their mother's helplessness, Billy, the older and more responsible of the two, decided he had to do something. He remembered his father telling him, "When you need help, talk to someone you trust." He knew just who to talk to. Mrs. Gable, the owner of the flower shop, who always gave him and Lily extra cookies when they visited with their dad. Clutching his sister's hand, Billy walked the long, dusty road to Mrs. Gable's flower shop. He poured out his story, his voice trembling with fear and desperation, telling her how the police had taken his father and how he knew with all his heart that his father was innocent. Mrs. Gable, a kind woman with a heart as big as her flower arrangements, listened patiently, her face etched with concern. She knew Arthur Jenkins. He was a regular customer, buying small bouquets for his wife and daughters whenever he could afford it. She couldn't believe he was capable of robbery. More importantly, she remembered something. The night her shop was robbed, she had heard a distinctive cough outside her shop just before the glass shattered. She had dismissed it at the time. But now, listening to Billy's desperate plea, she remembered something else. Arthur Jenkins had come into her shop the day before, complaining about a bad cough he'd been battling for weeks. This detail, seemingly insignificant, was a crack in Tom's carefully constructed theory. Mrs. Gable immediately called Tom Riley at the police station. She told him about the cough, about Arthur's visit, and about the two heartbroken children who were convinced of their father's innocence. Tom listened, his stomach churning with a growing sense of unease. He pulled Arthur's file again and reread the anonymous tip. It was still vague, circumstantial. He looked at the details of the robberies. The descriptions given by the victims were all general, and there was no real physical evidence tying Arthur to the crimes. He decided to check Arthur's alibi at the mill. He called the shift supervisor, who confirmed that Arthur had been working double shifts every night for the past 2 weeks.
He'd even stayed late, several times, to cover for sick colleagues.
The weight of his mistakes slammed into Tom with the force of a physical blow. He had been so eager to close the case, so blinded by the pressure, that he had ignored the glaring inconsistencies and the pleas of an innocent man and his family. He rushed to Arthur's cell. Arthur looked up, his face etched with despair. "Mr. Jenkins," Tom said, his voice heavy with remorse. "I am so sorry. I made a mistake. You're free to go." Arthur stared at him, his eyes filled with disbelief. "What about my job? My reputation? My children? What have you done to my children?" Tom knew that an apology wasn't enough. He had to make things right, not just for Arthur, but for his family and for the community he had sworn to protect. He drove Arthur back to his house. As they pulled up, Billy and Lily ran out, their faces lighting up with joy as they saw their father. They launched themselves into his arms, their tears of sadness replaced with tears of relief. Sarah stood on the porch, her face a mixture of relief and anger. Tom approached her, his heart filled with shame. "Mrs. Jenkins, I owe you and your family a profound apology. I acted hastily and made a terrible mistake. I promise you, I will do everything in my power to rectify the situation." Tom spent the next few days working tirelessly to clear Arthur's name. He tracked down the other officers who had been involved in the investigation and had them review the evidence again. He convinced the chief to issue a public statement acknowledging the mistake and exonerating Arthur Jenkins. But Tom knew that wasn't enough either. He needed to do something more, something that would restore Arthur's reputation in the eyes of the community. He decided to call a town hall meeting. He wanted everyone in Havenwood to hear the truth, not just about Arthur's innocence, but about Tom's own failings and his commitment to making amends. While the town hall was packed, Arthur and his family were there, sitting in the front row. Tom stood on the stage, his face pale but resolute. He started by recounting the robberies and the pressure he had been under to find the culprit. Then he told the story of Arthur's arrest, admitting his own mistakes and his rush to judgment. "I let the pressure get to me," Tom said, his voice echoing through the hall. "I saw what I wanted to see, instead of what was actually there. I failed to do my job properly, and I caused a great deal of pain to an innocent man and his family. For that, I am deeply, truly sorry." He then turned to Arthur and addressed him directly. "Mr. Jenkins, I know that my apology can't undo what happened, but I want you to know that I am committed to making sure that you receive justice. I will work with you and your family to ensure that your reputation is restored and that you receive any compensation you are entitled to." It then turned to the crowd. "I want everyone in Havenwood to know that Arthur Jenkins is an innocent man. He is a hard-working father and husband who was wrongly accused. I hope that you will all join me in welcoming him back into the community with open arms." The silence in the hall was deafening. Then, slowly, someone started to clap. It was Mrs. Gable. Then another person joined in, and another, until the entire town hall was filled with applause. Arthur stood up, his face filled with emotion. "Thank you," he said, his voice choked with tears. "Thank you, Officer Riley. Thank you, everyone." The meeting marked a turning point for Arthur and his family. The town rallied around them, offering support and assistance. The time Arthur got his job back at the mill, and the local newspaper ran a story about his exoneration and Tom's public apology. Tom didn't stop there. He helped the Jenkins family file a claim for compensation for the wrongful arrest, and he made sure they received the best possible legal representation. He even organized a fundraising drive to help them repair their house and get back on their feet. Over time, Arthur and Tom developed an unlikely friendship. Arthur understood that Tom had made a mistake, but he also saw that he was a good man at heart. Tom, in turn, learned a valuable lesson about the importance of humility, empathy, and the weight of the badge he wore. The robberies, it turned out, were committed by a group of teenagers who were looking for a quick way to make money. They were eventually caught and brought to justice, further vindicating Arthur Jenkins. The experience changed Tom. He became a better cop, more thoughtful, more patient, and more aware of the potential for bias and error. He realized that his job wasn't just about catching criminals. It was about protecting the innocent and upholding the principles of justice. Years later, Tom retired from the police force. He remained in Havenwood, a respected and beloved member of the community. He often visited Arthur and his family, sharing stories and laughter. He never forgot the lesson he learned from that mistake. The lesson that even the best of us can fall short. And that true justice lies not just in punishing the guilty, but in protecting the innocent and making amends for our errors. The weight of the badge was heavy, but Tom carried it with a newfound understanding, a deeper sense of responsibility, and a humility born from the knowledge that justice, like life, is often a delicate balance.